All right, ready to dive into today's news from India. We're talking everything from, get this, luxury homes and a mall fire to infrastructure headaches and even a little bit of politics.
Quite the mix. And it really highlights the dynamism, that constant push and pull we see playing out across India. Let's unpack it, shall we?
Let's. So Nagpur seems like the place to be these days, but maybe only if you've got a taste for the finer things.
Well, that's what's got people talking.
Because, 30% of Nagpur residents going for LUXURY homes. That's what this new CREDAE study's saying.
Yeah, it's definitely eye-catching. And it begs the question, is this a sign of a boom, real economic energy in Nagpur?
Or are we looking at, like, a bubble about to burst?
Exactly. 30% is a huge EE jump. It suggests something's driving it, some kind of economic upswing. But is it sustainable? That's what we need to figure out, like, what industries are fueling this demand for luxury, and how does that impact, everyone else in Nagpur?
Right, because a rising tide doesn't lift all boats if some folks can't even afford the dock fees.
Precisely. It has implications for the entire city, its social fabric, the economy. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Speaking of things we need to keep an eye on, wasn't there a pretty bad fire at that Empress Mall?
Yeah, over the weekend. Thankfully, no casualties reported, but...
But still, a fire in a mall, that's scary.
It is. And it raises concerns about safety regulations, Especially since, this mall, it had been issued warnings before.
Hold on. They had prior warnings. What happened? Did someone miss a memo, or...?
It seems that way. The fire, they're saying it started on the first floor, maybe an electrical short circuit.
Yeah.
Spread to some of the nearby shops. Thankfully, the mall security and the emergency services, they reacted quickly, evacuated everyone, 8 fire tenders responded, got it under control. But still, the fact that there were notices, issued to the mall, specifically for not complying with fire safety regulations, that's a red flag.
A big one. It's like, we can celebrate progress and all, but not at the cost of safety. Feels like building a house on sand, doesn't it?
It does. And unfortunately, this mall fire, it wasn't the only incident making headlines. That school bus accident near Gauchandur.
Right. 20 students hurt. Didn't that happen during some kind of local clash, too?
Yeah, it did. Which makes you wonder, about the context. Was it just an accident, or were there other factors at play?
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep shifting.
And then there was that railway collision.
Near Mul, right.
Yeah.
2 MPT engines.
Exactly. 5 people injured in that one.
So, is there a connection between these incidents, or is this just like a string of awful coincidences?
It's hard to say for sure right now, but what they do highlight, I think, is that need for, really strong infrastructure management, strict safety protocols, especially as India's transportation network grows.
It's that balancing act, isn't it? Trying to manage rapid development while also ensuring that, things are safe. Speaking of development, what's the latest on that massive new flyover Nagpur is getting?
Oh, you mean the one they're calling the longest in Asia?
That's the one.
Yeah, it's moving right along, and it's a prime example of how infrastructure, when done right, can address some of the, shall we say, growing pains of a city.
And maybe ease some of the traffic caused by all those new luxury homeowners. It's all connected.
Exactly. Improved infrastructure, it attracts investment, boosts the economy, even changes how people live and interact within a city. One change triggers another. It's fascinating to watch, how one change can set off a whole chain reaction. And it's not just contained to Nagpur either.
Right. We got to zoom out a bit, see what's happening on the national level. Speaking of zooming, Prime Minister Modi, he inaugurated those huge solar parks, right?
Yeah.
Big news for renewable energy.
Huge EE. This is a major move by India pushing towards that renewable energy future.
I think I read it was like 16,000 megawatts. 16,000. That's kind of hard to even picture.
It's massive, yeah. This is one of the biggest solar projects, globally. Puts India right out there as a leader in fighting climate change. And, it's not just about the environment either.
Oh, right. What else is there?
Well, think about the economics of it. Job creation, attracting foreign investment, giving the whole renewable energy sector a boost. It's a win-win, really.
Well, got to ask, is there a catch? There's always a catch, isn't there?
You're right to be, cautiously optimistic. It's promising, sure, but it's going to depend on a lot of things. Continued policy support, technological advancements, even just managing the grid with all this new energy coming in.
Like a high-stakes chess game, thinking 10 moves ahead. But hey, at least they're making the moves.
Absolutely.
So from sunshine and solar power to, a slightly less sunny topic,
yeah.
Prime Minister Modi also made news for some comments about, drug addiction. Young people specifically.
Yeah, during a speech in Washim, he blamed drug addiction on what he called urban Naxals and pointed the finger at the Congress Party.
Okay, so those are some loaded words right there, especially with elections coming up. What does urban Naxals even mean?
It's a term that's, well, it's controversial, to say the least. Basically, it's used to describe people, usually in cities, who they see as being sympathetic to Naxalite ideology, which, is rooted in that Maoist communist ideology.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's often used by critics to target, anyone who criticizes the government, anyone dissenting, really.
So throwing around a term like that, especially now, politically charged, just adds another layer to everything, right?
It does. And it's a good reminder, too, that all these things we're talking about, the politics, the social issues, the economic stuff, they're all tangled up together.
Like a tapestry, every thread connected.
Exactly.
So how does all of this impact these upcoming elections? I hear the BJP is going all in on voter outreach.
They are. Their campaign, it launched just today. Big focus on directly engaging with voters.
Which, in a country as massive and diverse as India, that kind of makes sense. One size doesn't fit all.
Exactly. It lets them, get a feel for what people actually care about, gauge the mood, and then tailor their messages accordingly.
Like a giant, complicated puzzle, trying to figure out what motivates people and how that translates into actual votes.
You got it.
Speaking of complicated puzzles, any updates on that court case? The one with Malou, I think the name was?
Oh, right. The court, they're supposed to be deciding about bail and custody tomorrow.
And this one's gotten a lot of attention, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, because it could have big implications for, how law enforcement does its job, how certain laws are interpreted even. Yeah, it's a case that's got everyone watching, that's for sure. Because, these kinds of decisions, they don't just end in the courtroom. They can really shake people's trust in the whole system.
Yeah, it's that whole justice delayed is justice denied thing, right?
Exactly. But at the same time, you don't want justice rushed either. It's got to be fair.
A delicate balance for...
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency, a fair trial, that's what matters. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they decide.
For sure. And how this might impact the bigger picture when it comes to law enforcement. We've been saying it all along. It's all connected.
It really is. Each story, each event, it's like a little window into how India's changing and growing.
From those luxury homes popping up in Nagpur to those accidents that, make you think about safety and, of course, all the political maneuvering going on. It's been a wild ride through the news today.
It has. And, it shows that India is facing some big challenges. But there's also that drive, that energy, pushing for something better.
Exactly. We see the ambition, the worries about safety, the political back and forth. It's all part of the story.
And that's exactly why we do this, right? Why we dive into these stories.
Because behind all the headlines and the speeches, there are real people, real lives being impacted by all of this.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So our job, it's to look deeper, connect the dots, never stop asking those questions,
Because the more we understand, the better we can talk about these things, the better chance we have of actually making a difference.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all of this, keep those questions coming, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.